Right, here we are. We're at, where are we? Waiporous, is that?
Waiporous, yeah.
Waiporous, and I think this is called the Ghost River Valley something or other, but anyway, we're here. And we've come out today, we've got Zach on camera just at the moment, you'll see a bit of him later on, and we've got various accoutrements, and we've got Richard and me, Chantal and Vanessa, and Jip, of course, who's currently employing frisbee throwers. So what I've come out here to do today, we're going to have a bit of a play. Well, the other thing we're going to do is I wanted to do just a quick bit of a video on winter preparation. And now Richard is a consummate off-roader and a good friend of mine, and Richard's Range Rover is more set up for trail driving. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to have a look at Richard's car, and then we'll show you some of the things that you should carry with you if you are considering a winter hike. Now, the reason we've mentioned this is because one of our pals, Emeka from Driven Hard, shout out to Driven Hard, he went off a couple of weeks ago and went up on a mountain trail, had a cracking time, but the weather turned, and you can see it's just given a touch of, it's given sunny all day today, but we've got a touch of this nice snow.
It's lovely, pretty.
Anyway, Emeka went out with a bunch of them, and they struggled to get some of the cars out.
Driver, okay, there, okay, come back just a tad, little more. What? Stop. What? Get that under there, and then adjust the front one as well, and then he should be good. Ignacio, if you keep your wheels in that direction and then go forward, you should be good. Whoa. Go.
Now, Land Rovers were all right, but the big Dodge Ram didn't make it out. He got stuck.
Hey guys, quick update on my brother's truck. They could not get to it. It snowed too much, and they could not get to it to rescue it. So Mitch, the guy who's doing the recovery, is talking to his boss, Jamie, and they're gonna see about it. Well, he's gonna, reconvene, figure it out. He's like, we probably are just gonna have to go from the other route. So basically where we drove from Harrison, but crazy.
And they had to leave it, and part of the reason they had to leave it was because they didn't go quite as prepared as they should have done, because shoulder season's a bit funny, weather can go bad. So anyway, we'll have a look at mine in a minute, but Richard, tell me about what you've got on your vehicle, because you've got a bunch of things, haven't you, for trails?
So the way that I've done it is, you've two options when you're four-wheeling. You either go with somebody, or you prepare so that you either have to walk home or you can get out of anything. So Zach, man on the cameraman's my son, and he's been four-wheeling with me since birth. And of course I've been doing this 35-40 years now. I don't like walking home, and so I have within my kit everything to front recover, everything to rear recover, repair, replace, or worst case, sleep in the vehicle overnight. So as Steve mentioned about that trip that Emeka did, he wasn't prepared, and so you should always check your weather before you're coming out. The nice thing with the Range Rovers and the Land Rover, any of the SUVs that you're four-wheeling with, you've got space. I do a lot of motorcycling, and you've not as much space, and you can still pack the right gear. So with mine, if we come over to mine, I have, and this is a Range Rover Sport, so this is the smaller of the vehicles, albeit the biggest engine.
And what year is it?
This is a 2010. So I've on the roof rack, and this is part pose, I'll be honest. Most of the stuff will actually go in the back of the vehicle, but on the roof rack I have a couple of Max Tracks.
And are those the genuine ones?
Those are genuine ones.
But now Zach can't, behind camera, if you shout, you didn't get the genuine ones, did you? You got the...
I have.
What do you have?
I have knockoff ones.
Right.
Just on my tailgate.
I'll just go open these while Zach's filming, and then we can...
So the difference is these ones, both Zach and I have got these ones as well. And these are 89-99 bucks a pair out of Canadian Tire, Princess Auto, where we got them from. And they're not as strong as the originals.
Yeah.
be fair, but
Not
the
quite as
original,
spiky either, are
the
they?
originals are 425 a pair,
And what were these?
less than 100.
Yeah.
Right, and they come in a nice bag. The other thing is, they're not going to bridge as well, but I've found if you put two together, it'll carry a Range Rover. So for $100, and like I had a pair of, I've still got some cheaper ones at home, and I have them for, you know, if you really need one of these and you bury it in a bog, it was $50. Who gives a crap? Bury one of those, it's $200.
Yeah.
So we have a few of these, and like Zach's a young lad.
$100 is affordable, isn't it? You
It's
can shove that in
$100
your
is
car
affordable, and if you break them, and like I've had an LR3 run across top of mine a few times, never broken them. I picked mine up second hand off Kijiji, but it's a big chunk, and these are good. You know,
Well, I've had them. I had a Disco 3, lifted, lockers, Duratrax, and I rounded it right out, had those in the back, and it saved me having to get recovered.
yeah.
Because I still had to dig for half an hour and get the tracks underneath it, but I got out.
Now these aren't just for winter, are they? I mean, you can use
They're
them
all the time.
all the time. But one of the benefits of these is if you do get, let's say you don't have an aggressive Range Rover with fancy wheels or anything like that, just got your average sort of everyday all season tyres on, maybe an LR3 or something. If you buy a pair of these for $100, you throw them in, if you do start to slip, you can put these underneath your feet, well, your tyres, and you can get that bit of traction, can't you? Just enough to get you moving, and that's
the benefit I've found, two of them together is rigid enough you can bridge stuff with them. You could also, at a push, like Zach's got a lifted Range Rover, none of my jacks will go under his vehicle without having to have a block. And so if we're out and about and he does have to take a wheel off, I'd put those two together and put the jack on it, and it's strong enough. And
So
worst case is you bust them and they're $100.
So let's just have a look at your max tracks in comparison. If Zach can come over with the camera,
Zach can climb up there.
he'll be able to just, he's 9 feet tall as it is, but
He is.
Hang on.
you can see up here you've got a little bit more pokiness where the other ones were slightly more rounded.
There's a ton of videos on comparisons, and you get what you pay for, but I would struggle to say, unless I was four-wheeling all the time, which I suppose I do. I mean, I had the spare few $100 and it was sort of more, I'll have some nice ones, but I wouldn't go out and drop $425.
Now you've got a very fancy mounting kit here.
This is the proper Max Trax mounting kit.
And where did you get that from?
I actually, again, Kijiji.
Right.
So I'm like Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji. If I can get it new but second hand, I will. I'll save
And
money.
it just mounts to the roof rack in the usual kind of way?
There is a plate underneath that mounts to the roof rack,
Right.
and then those pins, and you just put a padlock through the
Yeah,
pins.
if you wanted them to
Correct.
stay safe, yeah. And
Right.
while we're up there, Zach, if you can just pull back a bit, you've got a Rotopax 4-gallon fuel can.
I bought that from a very good friend of mine. I have two.
I know him.
I know him very well. Yeah, he has two on back of his Disco. Yeah, and that again, it's 16 litres. They're easy to handball up and down. I don't need the gas, but it's nice. Like we're out playing, and it's another one of those things. You might have a full tank of gas when you're coming out, like we gassed up half an hour away. If one of us breaks down, or like Zach and I were out here one time, both of us got bogged down in snow and there was potential we were going to have to sleep out. Having an extra 16 litres is maybe a night of running the engine, keeping you from freezing to death.
One of the things that I like to carry fuel in winter, I've got two on mine, as you can see. Mine's a diesel. So I've got one Rotopax full of diesel and one Rotopax full of gas, and the reason for that is
It's called
this.
Lucky Dip, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, which one do you want?
You taste it first.
Now, many years ago, I drove truck in Canada, and I drove across the mountains, and there was an accident outside of Golden. I didn't make anywhere near Golden. I got stuck in traffic, because it's only a one-track road, and as the trucks and cars backed up, I was quite away from Golden by that time. Now, unfortunately, there were lots of cars behind me, lots of trucks behind me, and it was 29 hours before the emergency services were able to open that road. I had to stay there for 29 hours. Lots of the cars ran out of fuel, and it was relatively warm. It was only 2 degrees, but it often gets down to minus 30 out there.
It does.
And at that time you need to run your car, and you need to run your car because otherwise you're going
to
die of starvation. The old use of the word, die of cold. So I always carry with me whenever I cross the mountains, regardless of how close I am to fuel stations. I never run with any less than half a tank of fuel, and I always carry a full can of gas with me for that reason, because I've been stuck. I had 1,000 litres on my truck, so it wasn't a problem, but a lot of the cars around me ran out, and they ended up coming into the trucks and to keep warm and safe.
I think a good rule of thumb is if you have to fuel up before you get home, you should be carrying gas with you.
Yeah, and it is. It's the practice or your rules of thumb, and it comes back to, and we're going to pick on Emeka because he's not here. Always
pick on the guy that's not here. Yeah.
Always blame the guy that's not here. You know, he was out in runners up in a snowbank. You know, you're going out. What's your worst case scenario? Your worst case scenario is you break down and you can't get home. In which case, have a spare tank of gas. You've space in your vehicle, pack it. It's $20, really, 20 or 30 bucks.
We'd only gone 2 minutes up the road before I could turn the corner and saw Richard parked on a bank like this. And it is a funny thing about banks. When you park on them and you take photographs and all that kind of stuff, they never really translate into the same kind of feeling it is inside the vehicle. And this photograph here, video here, obviously doesn't look very steep, but I can assure you it was. In fact, not only was it very steep, I've got an inclinometer to show you how steep it was. It was 32 degrees. Now I backed up next to them in the line, so they could all get out and take a photograph, and it was actually so steep that me water bottle rolled off me chair and smashed me packet of crisps, which was a bad day all round. Now while we're backing up here, and I'll be quiet in a second so you can listen, but there was no slipping of the wheels as I backed up that icy and snowy bank. And here you can see 32 degrees on the inclinometer, quite a lot steeper than it looks. This Ghost River Valley road's actually quite pretty, but you've got to sort of get into it. The beginning's very treed, and then there's some outcrops where you look down on the river, and that was where the panorama was taken. And we're on our way to a short hill climb. It's only a tiny hill climb, but when I last came out here with these two, I was in the Defender, and we did the hill climb in the Defender, and didn't perform very well at all. Actually struggled to get up it and skidded most of the way down it, and so we decided to stop just before we drop into the river valley proper, down a relatively steep hill. We just decided to stop and see how the D5 compared to these two Rangies. Now Zach's just taken the lead here, and this is Zach knows this territory very well because it's quite close to where Zach and Richard live. Zach lives in Calgary and Richard just lives up in Airdrie. Now I live quite a bit away, and it's a 3 or 4 hour drive depending on traffic to get to here. So Richard and Zach come out playing quite regularly. I've been a couple of times, and if you look back at that Defender video where we compared the Defender and Zach's Range Rover and Richard's Range Rover back then, this was taken actually at the bottom of this hill. If you get to the bottom and turn left, those the big rocky sort of climby bits there were sort of taken there. Anyway, this is a pretty, it never looks much, does it, when you put it on a film, but this is actually quite a fair descent here. It's not anywhere like that 32 degree grade, but I bet you to be getting on for 15, perhaps maybe 17 or 20 in places. It's a bit of a rough climb on the way back out. Both of us were all spun a little bit coming up here, but with a bit of momentum you're alright. Going down is a bit more precarious than coming up it, really, because you can see there's a bit of traffic been up and down here, and it has managed to make some of the bits a little skatey and sketchy. Really, that's a sketchy, that's a bit of both of those words. Anyway, I've let Zach get plenty on in front just in case I needed to stop in a hurry, but as you'll see shortly, I've engaged hill descent control here to help with this descent, because the kinds of terrain that the hill descent control is really usable on is exactly this, where there's a high chance of slip, and you want a fairly steady and progressive trip down, if you see what I mean. And here I've got DSC on, DSC off and hill descent control on. I want to just slow it down here a bit because as you can see it's a bit, well, perhaps you can't, I'll cross it in with all the other video, but you can see here it's a bit, can you see here? You can't. I'm hoping GoPro's got a better views. Anyway, you can see here I've selected the hill descent control. That's that green banner to the left here, and you can see that it's set about 6 kilometers an hour, and that's what we're doing down this fairly steep descent. Like that one might not have made it out. Now, just while we're looking at Richard's vehicle here, and while I mentioned being stuck out, you know, in an accident or whatever, because in Canada we do have the situation where roads can often get closed for
Yes.
weather. So you'll see here Richard's got a big wax jacket, and this is a fluffy blanket. He's got some gloves. He's obviously also wearing stuff. But if we come into my vehicle, now what I've got here is, this is the dog's bed, but underneath it I've got a blanket. I have a blanket down the back. I have water. I have a stove, which I always carry with me just for a cup of coffee or whatever, or even to keep the car warm a little bit. In the back of this box here, we'll get it out in a minute, but in that is a pair of those insulated coveralls, like insulated overalls. I've got multiple jackets, as you can see, and I've got a battery charger to boost the car in case the battery runs down. So these are very fundamental and emergency dog food for its fluffiness.
Emergency dogs.
For emergency dogs, yeah. So you can see that this is my basic minimum. I haven't prepped this vehicle. Yeah. This is just what I carry. Oh, I've got a box of tools as well, but this is what I carry all the time.
So I ended up Stanley toolkit. It's got all the wrenches, all the sockets, everything, because I got sick to death of which do I take. You're guaranteed you'll always take the thing that you don't need.
Yeah.
That has everything I need in it. I've thrown that one in. It's a 12 volt compressor. I can re-inflate everybody's tyres. That's not a problem. So if I chuck that, get that out of the way, I've just redone these 3 boxes. This one, number 1, is what I call my recovery box. All the shackles, tow ropes, all the stuff, that's 24/7, always in the car. If I need to recover anybody or myself, it's in that box. High-vis jacket, the whole lot. This is number 2. This one is all of the chains, jump leads, snatch blocks, everything that I'm going to need for rear recovery using the high lift.
Do you have a spare set of clothes?
I have mostly a spare set of clothes. What I do have, and then this is my winter.
Yeah, winter clothing, jet
Right,
oil and
so,
that. Right, yeah.
so whereas you've got it spread around your car, that's
Yeah.
the way you work. This is my 1, 2, 3. So
Yeah.
depending, that's always in the car. Winter, this I just throw it
that
in.
in the car, yeah.
And this one has, if I go back, shovel, candles, sugar, big knife, jet boil, axe,
Yeah.
everything to survive
Is in that one.
in this one.
We'll compare that.
Point to be made. Candles are a weird thing you wouldn't think to carry in your car, but I think we all three of us have them.
We do.
Because if you run out of fuel, say we run out of fuel somewhere, a candle can keep you 1 or 2 degrees warmer.
It can.
inside.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you look at the size of this riverbed, and very shortly you'll see the little river that's caused it, the Ghost River, and you'll sort of be asking yourself, how can it be that this little river has caused this massive riverbed? And I don't really know the answer to this question, but you can see from this next drone footage just how extensive this river bottom is. Part of the reason, of course, for this is just right in front of you. There used to be a sort of a subsidiary diversion dam that passed water from the Ghost River into another lake, but in fact to a couple of little lakes, ghost lakes, but it was all sort of washed out in 2013 when there was a big flood, and you can still see some of that infrastructure further upstream. If you were to continue straight on, when we came to the bottom of that hill, actually just slightly to the left, but if you went straight on there in a straight line before turning to the right, you'd actually end up in a massive lake called Lake Minnewanka. I don't make these lake names up. And it's a very big lake. One of my goals at some stage over the next couple of years is to kayak down it. It's a 2 or 3 day paddle, camp and do all that kind of stuff, and it'll be jolly good fun. Anyway, that lake's very big, and at the bottom of it, on this side of it here near the trailhead, as it were, is a couple of dried up lakes, and they're named ghost lakes because that's sort of what they are, really. Now they do fill up from time to time. I've looked back at the old footage, the old Google Earth footage, and you can see that at some point they do contain water, but there's none in it now, and there doesn't look to have been for the last couple of years. As we do this bounce next, you'll see this mound that you saw in the earlier sort of drone footage, and then that in relation to the bottom of the hill. But that area here, that used to see that diversion from the water of this little bit of a river, this Ghost River. It used to run into those 2 smaller ghost lakes, but not the big ghost lake that's actually dammed as it is now and is used for generating power. But those little 2 ghost lakes, when it floods, do collect quite a lot of water. In fact, when the flood happened in 2013, they sort of filled up and weren't able to collect any more water, really, which is one of the reasons that it burst the diversionary dam and then started to flood Calgary in a major way. Almost all, you can't tell a thing here, but almost all of the stone underneath here is very large granity kinds of limestone, and it's very fairly large chunks, almost like it's been blasted or blown up or something. It's not really the sort of small shale bashed about that you would see in a river bottom. It's quite, in places it's quite sharp. It's covered here by a lot of fluffy snow, as you can see in places. Zach's pushing through what could be almost 18 inches of snow in places where it sort of drifted into dips and things, and like this spot here is a little deeper. You can hear the rumble of the gravel's gone away, and we're just pressing snow at this point. But anyway, just up at the top of this trailhead here, we have to do a couple of river crossings, and this is where things get a little bit sketchy for Zach, and I completely miss recording a very pleasant river crossing, which I attempted 3 times just for the purposes of the video.
So I've got 12 bottles of water in the car. If we're going to do a major, if we're doing an overnight, then I'll put a load of packs in, so another 10 litres of water, as Steve's got.
So
but
if we
then
just look
everything else is in here.
So if we look at this box, this is much the same as Richard's. I have a large collapsible snow shovel. I always carry extra food. These are emergency beef jerky. I have a saw here, a fold-up saw. I have a shovel underneath here, like a trenching shovel. I've also got an axe somewhere in here. There it is. There's the axe. My tow ropes. This is a ground sheet. It also converts into being a bivouac tent if you need a bivouac tent. But if you damage your vehicle or you need to change a tyre and you don't have appropriate gear on the floor, this also works as a ground sheet. You can just get it out and kneel on it and not get stuck.
Very nice. It keeps your knees warm.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Keeping yourself dry is very important.
So really, these are Richard's is almost identical to mine. The only difference is that my jet boils.
We've just got with the same stuff. It's just moved around. I think the only difference is really, and this is where like the more serious. My LR3, I had dual batteries on, dual Optimas, and it split charge of the whole lot. And it was a great idea for winching, and when I bogged it down, and there is a video of how bad I actually buried that thing, it ran for hours afterwards underwater. Brilliant thing. In the Sport, I don't have the space because I've got the big Brembo servos, and I ended up picking up this little gadget instead, which is a full size. It's got a lithium-ion battery in it, I believe. I can run it off solar. It's got the 600 watt inverter, everything built in, but it lifts out. And like last week when we were four-wheeling, one of the lads had a quad that couldn't start. It's really easy to just move this around, and I'm sort of going with, I'd rather have one of these in than have the dual battery. And with batteries, I'm an electrician by trade, so I speak from experience. Size is king. You know, you're getting one of these little packs and it says it can do 2000 amps, but it's 2000 amps by how many seconds? This thing's a full-size battery and it'll just plug into the port here and charge up, manages itself, and it were 120 bucks. It was cheaper than an Optima battery.
Now Richard says that he carries a recovery kit all the time. And really, if you're like us, and the same will be true for Zachy, he'll have a tow rope and a bunch of things.
Oh yeah.
Richard's like that. So if you're of our ilk, these are the things you carry. Underneath my floor here, I have a hard tow rope, a couple of hard shackles, straps. This is another axe. I've got some wheel nuts and some other bits of things, as well as some extra recovery, some soft shackles and other things. So this is my everyday carry, I suppose. This is stored in here all the time. And Richard's the same, is just in a different box. So what do you carry in yours? You've got a similar kind of shovel that I've got here. Look, where have you had this from?
Canadian Tire. I think it was like what, 20 bucks.
Yeah, Christmas present last year, year before, something like that.
Little metal shovel. Having a plastic one, you can't break through hard snow or ice.
Yeah.
So having a metal one's nice and it's collapsible.
This is a nice little stack.
That's beautiful, is that?
Yeah, it's lovely that
thing. I looked at the Milwaukee pack out. That one has the little slide drawers. Yeah. So that is my everyday. That never leaves the car.
That's your everyday carry.
That's my everyday. It's a grocery bucket that I picked up for 10 bucks. Kinetic strap there.
So kinetic strap.
Now let's just mention this. The kinetic strap, you've got a 7/8, which is thicker than mine, I think. Oh no, I've got 3/4, yeah, so yours is definitely thicker than mine.
Right, so kinetic strap, Princess Auto, 80 bucks. Couple of D shackles, again, Princess Auto, 10, 15 bucks. Yeah. Waiting for them to come on sale, so we're not going out dropping tons of money.
Thousands of dollars.
But as you see, D shackles are in there. It's sat in the back of vehicle. He's then got a. So this is great for pulling somebody out of a ditch, because it basically holds the kinetic force in the rope, so you're not damaging the vehicle when you're pulling hard. He's then got a hard rope, and this we've used quite a few times.
Yeah, that one's the use and abuse strap. We've got vehicles home a few hours with that one.
It'll eventually, this is the one you're not going to pull somebody out of a ditch with because it's all frayed and damaged. That's what you use the kinetic one for. This one will eventually give out, it'll get thrown away and replaced.
Yeah.
Jumper, everybody should always have jumper cables in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you've got
My shaving bag full of kit.
So this is a great little, you know, again, as Zach says, shaving bag. It doesn't have to be expensive kit.
On the side, this is a $15 Chem with soap that was worth $15.
Yeah, see, these are what you officially call soft shackles. The shackles in a Dove care case.
Soft bag, yeah.
Soft bag. Zach doesn't need these shackles, but he might need them to connect to somebody's car that is too small to take his shackle. So we've all prepared. He's carrying this stuff most of the time to help somebody else out. Same with Steve, he's carrying extra gas. It's always to help somebody else, but also the three of us, between us, we have everything to get each other out as well.
Now, it's a good job that we've been carrying everything to get each other out as well, because just about now we needed it, and we'll see why in a minute. Here is the river crossing. It's a very beautiful sort of river crossing, and it's very, very pretty, but of course, as you can see, it's flat in one area and quite shallow, and then that second bluer sort of river that you saw to the left is actually starting to freeze over, and the reason it's gone a colour, of course, is because what you can see is ice freezing over. But the previous weekend before we did this run, Zach and his dad had actually been out here and done this exact trip, and had a cracking time and lots of fun, but of course there's been a week of freezing and whatever in between, and so conditions had become a little bit worse. Now you can see there's a couple of tracks here, one to the north and then sort of one that Zach's following, and he took this line because that was the line he took last time. A big drop in, you can see, straight as the ice comes out into the river, and then he made a valiant attempt here. If he'd have just had a touch more speed, you can see he's almost out there, but he sort of slipped pretty much straight back in and took with him some of the ice that's starting to form over that deeper bit of river. Now Zach had a couple of good attempts here, but of course the difficulty that Zach was facing is that every time he had an attempt at the bank, he was taking with him fresh water, which was making the bank very, very slippy, and despite having very, very good tyres, he was really struggling to gain purchase. And regardless, I think, of how much effort or sort of tyre wise or whatever Zach had got there, I don't think he'd have ever come up that, just because it's basically slick ice with a fairly large, probably 10 or 12 inch sort of almost like a curb at the bottom. Now this is a stunning area, as you can see. It's absolutely beautiful, and this particular kind of weather is my very favourite. It's snowy, it's light and fluffy. It wasn't particularly cold, so you could stand outside and take some good photographs. The snow didn't stick to the drone camera, and it was not really sticking to the GoPro camera, so it was great for cinematography or filmography or whatever you want to call it. The rivers are beautiful. They've got that hint of blue ice to them, and very, very pretty all over. This is actually the eastern edge of the Rocky Mountains, and just about here it starts to get quite pokey. Basically the foothills we've passed through those going down that bit of a trail as we drop into the river bottom. Now Richard's looking for a place to cross here and has come traipsing up this the shallow side of the river to find a shallower crossing just further upstream. He has missed this bit of a shot to the right that you can kind of just see right about now, and he missed that because of course it looks just as bad as it does where Zach was getting stuck down here, and accordingly had dismissed it as a reasonable route. Having sort of not been able to find anywhere, he returns here to try and pull Zach from the rear, because of course Richard's got the winch on the front, and it will be relatively easy just to snatch Zach back out, and you could have a more aggressive attempt or find another crossing. But you can see right about now what's happened is Zach's been joined by another vehicle. And this is one of the benefits of having a trail which is relatively well used, is that and from time to time you can see there are other vehicles kicking about, and they're all, as Richard and I had alluded to in previous videos, this camaraderie is great because everybody's here to help people out and move on and do whatever. But you can see that this kind of terrain is a little bit more serious than you would want. It was certainly in the snow than you would want with an average sort of unprepared vehicle. And this vehicle that's joined, I can only tell from the drone footage, and I'm not 100% sure even of that, but I think that's a Lexus. And you can see Richard just had a quick word with him and suggested that they would asked him if he would pull him out, and of course that's what's happened. So here you can see this fella's getting his fare lead out, and he's just going to connect this to Zach's front recovery position and begin the recovery proper, I suppose. Now, I've just taken the drone around for a little bit of reorientation so you could see from above how this procedure was going on, and they've they've connected the vehicle up to the Lexus, and they've started to winch, and you can see Zach steadily being pulled out. But right about now you can see his back tyres are getting caught on that step that he was really struggling to, and he got this far the first, second and third attempts, but that big, almost a curb, that ledge, I suppose, that icy ledge is the difficulty that he was experiencing. And you could see just as the rear wheel started to come up that ledge just how much the front of the Lexus sat down. But nicely prepared Lexus that, and I do have the gentleman's email and what have you, and we have agreed to send him this footage, which I'm sure he'll be pleased to have. Now, about this point, you can see another vehicle, another Jeep has come across. We missed him crossing, but he crossed at that place that Richard sort of dismissed about 5 minutes earlier on, 2-3 minutes earlier on. Very nice gentleman comes down, and about at this point, he starts to catch up with Richard and tells him that the place he crossed at only had a very short lip. And so Richard dashes off to cross there so that he can, help Zach de-winch at the other side. You can see it's not quite as deep. There's probably about a 10-inch step there too, but the bank was far less steep, so it was much easier for the vehicle to climb out. You can just see how beautiful the valley is here. It's really stunning in this weather. This is my attempt. I actually had to do this 2 or 3 times, not because I needed to do it 2 or 3 times because I couldn't get out, but I had neglected to press record on the drone. And seeing as I really wanted this river crossing, I'd go back and do it a couple of times. Look at Jip crossing the river, look like a trooper, nothing stops him. Now, one of the benefits of actually recording a video 3 times is that you've got surprise footage that you didn't know existed. And I didn't think I'd actually caught this video. I was just complaining to Richard that I didn't have any footage of me. You can see the drone look there. That was the first time when I didn't actually press record. But actually I recorded this crossing through the GoPro 3 times and just couldn't find it. And here it is, look. So I'm very pleased that I've discovered this in editing. Basically what happened here is that we got to the other side, we all met up, and Zach had acquired a bit of water in the back of his Range Rover because of course he'd been sloshing about, and some muppet that before he'd bought it had drilled an hole in where his spare tyre goes, and of course he'd had let a bit of water in to his suspension compressor, so he was a bit concerned about the situation. We pulled up here to sort of let it drain for a while. And you can see Jip's trolling along here and come to say hello. Oh, you've made it. Thank you very much for turning up, Dad. And so we, from this point, we sort of had a 5 or 10 minute break, and then moseyed on up to the waterfalls. Right. So that's basically our everyday carry, all 3 of us, and we're all broadly very similar, really. Well, some of us.
I have something I think a little different to the both of you.
Oh, what have you got?
Youth. About 30 years.
About 30 years on it, yeah.
Well, I have a -20 sleeping bag in the back of my
Ah, okay, that's a good idea. Yeah,
because I normally wear my cold weather gear to work, and so it comes around with me,
Right.
rather than being able to leave it.
yeah. Now that's a very good idea, carrying a sleeping bag, because they do squash up quite small, don't they? Yeah. I should just mention Richard's eye lift jack on the roof rack, which you will have seen in the footage as Zach's popped his head up there.
Well, it's a good thing actually. Come back to mine, because that eye lift jack, a lot of people sort of throw them in the back, and you can shorten them. But when we got stuck, and we were talking about this in trail, the problem about getting stuck, when you're stuck and your vehicle's this deep and lower in snow, you can't get under it to jack it up, and you need to jack it up to get something under wheels to get traction. And that's where with me, like if I get stuck, I'm like, I'm never going to do that, I'll learn. And so I got this for high lift, and it bolts into the normal high lift, and then you just hook it inside of your wheel. Now you're able to lift, don't matter what's around, you're not having to get under the vehicle, you can lift the whole vehicle. But it'll also work on one at shackles on it. There's a load of different ways of using this for sake of 40 or 50 bucks, you know, Christmas presents, these sort of things that you put on your list of your Christmas presents and go, hey, I'll have one of them. I haven't used it yet.
So ironically, we were talking about a high lift jack to remove the drama of a situation, and what we're doing here is when I went up a little bit of a slope, it was very icy and slid back, but I slid back onto what you can't see here, which is a very big rock, and awkwardly there was a rock right in front of the tyre, which meant that we couldn't get the max tracks underneath. So now what we've done is, as Richard's just shown you, we've knocked carefully, jacked it up with this tool that oddly you mentioned earlier on, and now we're going to just drive off, because now we're clear of the obstacle. We should be able to use the max tracks to grab traction and push ourselves forward. I mean, the eye lift jacks were designed originally to pick up under the what do they call those Nerf bars we used to call them? What do they call them now? Anyway, what they call them? Rock sliders, yeah. Nerf bars are rock sliders, so they're designed to be used with those. And then later on the Defenders, the plastic Defenders used to have that tube, didn't you? And then they had the attachment to fat.
The problem with them is, you can jack it up, it tips. That's why I like that hook, because it hooks in two places, so it keeps the jack straight.
And with newer vehicles that don't have these holes or don't have those rock sliders, you can use those things.
You can use them on any vehicle that's got decent, strong wheels, really.
Okay, so we've just had a quick chat about the kinds of things that Richard and I carry for the trail, but this very short piece is just going to be about preparation in general for winter. Vehicles that you use every day in winter are going to need certain kinds of preparation for winter. It's just part of the thing you should gear up for. First job is the silicone lubricant. This helps stop your doors from freezing closed. The Land Rovers have several door seals. They've one here, they've one on the outside, and then they've also one on the inside. And what you do is you just take a soft cloth, squirt some silicone spray of the door seal. You can go all the way around. I'm not going to, just for the purpose of this video. Then do the outside here as well, and then this inner one. And what that does is the silicone repels the water. And it is the water that stops the door, that freezes the door together. And so when you close the door and it has this silicone spray on it, it stops the water penetrating the rubber and stops the door freezing. That stops you pulling the door rubbers off. That's the second job. There's a special setting on these later vehicles, and it's called winter wipe park mode or winter park wiper mode or some such thing. Anyway, what it does is it moves the wipers to a different position on the screen, so when they park further up, and I just wanted to go through how that procedure works. So you basically press the OK button to get to your options, and then it's under convenience settings. So here you are, vehicle settings, and if you go down here into convenience features and then select that, right at the bottom here you've got wiper settings, and then you engage that one. And auto wipe, which is obviously what we want, and winter wipe park mode, which engages that, and then you can exit that, and then basically all that does is it brings them up the windshield a little bit. And the reason for that is that then you can then pull them out and clean behind it, if you see what I mean, and it doesn't pressurize the wiper motor basically. Anyway, so that's the winter wipe park mode, or winter wiper park mode. You need to be putting some wax over your windscreens and windows. This helps the frost and ice and snow stop building up. You can get a special window wax for that. You can also, I've brought this out here, it is very important before the weather starts to turn that you get some -50. You can see here, this is -50 windscreen washing fluid. If you don't do that, it will freeze up. All of our vehicles have heated squirty jets for the windows, but on different vehicles that's not always the case. And also, if it freezes up in the container, then you're going to lose the ability to get it to the windscreen anyway. This is a dry graphite lubricant. It's a pretty messy stuff, and you shake it. It's got graphite in it with the lubricant, and what you do with this is I just put it on my door hinge, which is here. And you can see that these days these are made of plastic, and the older vehicles used to be made of metal, and the plastic actually binds. It starts to bind on the material on the inside, and it becomes fragile and delicate in the cold because it becomes brittle. And so I just go around very carefully and spray this. It just helps give that plastic a little lubrication and stops it biting on itself. The last thing, and we're all the same here, is that we've all put on some 3-peak mountain snowflake tyres. These are tyres, I'm going to try and find the, there it is. These are tyres that have the 3-peak mountain snowflake rating. These are Duratrax. I've got dedicated winters on. That makes them slightly less good in deep snow, but much better in ice. And these are Hakkapeliitta, Nokian Hakkapeliitta studded winter tyres. And basically that's all you need to do to prepare your vehicle. It is important to do that, because if you don't do that and then winter happens, then you're at risk of damaging your vehicle, or you're not prepared for it. And for the 2 minutes it's going to take you to go around and prepare the vehicle, it's well worth it. Anyway, let's move on the trail. Now that last section was on winterisation of vehicles, and anybody with a vehicle should really be doing that kind of preparation. But for this sort of stuff, which is, as you can see, a little bit more serious, you'll see Richard going down an old riverbed there, or a tributary as was, and this sort of work requires a little bit more preparation and a little more work on your vehicle, really. These sorts of winter trails are lots and lots of fun, and I've been wanting to do some winter camping in these sorts of areas, which are fantastic. But you do need a little bit more gear with you to be able to to do these kinds of trails. And really, although you can do them on your own, it's advisable to always take somebody else with you for the reasons that Richard mentioned earlier on. These kinds of terrains can be surprisingly dodgy if you're not careful, and you can get yourself into a bit of trouble. For instance, right now Richard's crossing a river, and these sorts of river protocols or crossing protocols are not known by many. When one person crosses, you usually wait until they get out to the other side, and then make sure that that person clears the river and pulls quite a way up and slows down while the second person comes across, just to make sure that they can. Now you can see Richard's brake lights come on there because he's waiting to make sure that I get out of the river and come across, which time he sort of sets off, and again we carry on. You'll notice that the exit here is a little bit more bumpy, so I'll give Richard plenty of space so that he can come back if he needs to, or that I can go into the river and pull him back if he gets stuck. Now this is a little bit more of an aggressive exit, as you can see, because there's again another ice build-up, and these kinds of little ice builds-up, these sorts of unpredictable kinds of, you can just see the camera struggling to cope with the light change here. These unpredictable nature of the ground is why it's good to go with somebody else, just in case anything does befall you. We're going to cross this river here for the final time and just sit underneath this big waterfall on the right hand side. And this is at the end, basically the final crossing of the Ghost River, and Richard just took this video of me crossing here, and you can see in the bottom right hand corner, you can see Richard sort of filming me as we come out. But right behind Richard you can see this beautiful waterfall, and that's the point of making it to the top of this trailhead here, so you can sit and take a photograph and enjoy the winter scenery. And in fact, when we got here, there were a couple of other Jeeps and Tacomas that had done just the same thing. They'd lit a fire and they were enjoying the scenery and having a right old blast. Now, one of the chaps had got a Tacoma and he'd taken it up to in front of the waterfall just behind Richard there, and I thought I'd have a bit of a go at it myself, but unfortunately a culmination of a number of things, but I ended up sliding slightly sideways, and then with a failed hill climb, the front wheel got stuck on the wrong side of a log and sort of brought me back in a different line that I'd taken on the way up. When you see photographs like this, you often wonder how that person ever ended up where they did, and it's never intentional. And of course, despite my years of experience here, the vehicle sort of took me where it wanted to go, and that was pretty much the end of it, really. The extrication was a bit more complex than it seems, really. Richard couldn't get much purchase on the ice either, and that was pretty much as far as he backed up. He did try to winch me forwards off this bit of a rock, but that didn't happen because, curiously enough, the Discovery has a habit of lowering itself after you've sort of got out for a couple of minutes, and I didn't realise, so wasn't really in extended mode, which would have helped a lot. You can see we used a max tracks, and in the end we ended up jacking it up with the eye lift, as you saw earlier on, and then putting the max tracks underneath and got out that way. So it was a good job we actually had all this gear. Just before I cut to some more drone footage, because it's really much more interesting than me rabbiting on, I just wanted to share some photographs. This is Richard and his L320, his 5 litre supercharged. Here's Danny, and this is taken looking away from the waterfall at the Ghost River Valley, and then here's one looking at it. You'll see Zach and his girlfriend just right underneath the waterfall, and then Richard and his friend, and of course Jip the Magnificent trolling about, thinking how wonderful the snow is. And with that, it remains only for me to thank Richard and Zach for helping me make this video, because without their contribution, of course, I wouldn't have had much to talk about, really. And also for eventually guiding me up to the waterfall. I've been a couple of times and never managed to make it to the end for one reason or other. But anyway, we did this time, even though I did get stuck on a rock. So thank you very much for tuning in. Please do like and subscribe to Shedlock 2000's channel of many interesting Land Rovery things. Feel free, of course, to leave any comments or ask any questions, and I'll do my best to get back to you with some answers. Now, if there's watching live, of course, it's Christmas time, and so I would like to take this opportunity to wish you and yours a very, very Merry Christmas and all the very best for the new year. I can't believe that I've been doing this for over a year now. It seems a bit odd, really, somehow to me, but anyway, there we are. Please enjoy your Christmas turkey and your Christmas sherry, and we'll see you in the new year for more of the same. Cheerio.